Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, I'm finally going to review all of the books that I read in the month of March. So in the month of March, I actually read 7 books for a total of 2,195 pages and an average star rating of 3.64. Let's just dive right into the reviews. Some of these books that I read at the beginning of the month, it feels like it's been so long since I read them, but I will do my best to recap them for you. First, I read A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, and I gave this book 4 stars. This is an adult fantasy, the first in a duology, and it's set in this fantasy land that's inspired by the culture of Scotland. The main character, Jack, is a bard who has been away from his homeland in Cadence for a long time, but he is summoned back after several girls from their clan end up going missing. He works together with Adara, who was kind of like his childhood frenemy. Like, they were kind of friendly, but they also kind of didn't get along, and the two of them start working together to find these missing girls. I was really enjoying this book for most of it. I don't want to spoil it, but some of the tropes the author used, just chef's kiss. Like, I was so thrilled with the way the plot was going. I also did like the romantic relationships in this. There really are 2 main romantic pairings, both of whom I enjoyed. I personally did not like where the book went once we found out who was taking these girls and why. That to me just felt a little bit cliche. It was a little bit of an overused fantasy trope with where the plot went, and so I was less than thrilled by that reveal and where the book went after that. I also felt like the ending was a bit frustrating because the author was clearly trying to create conflict to propel into the next book. She didn't want the characters in the relationship to be too happy because there was a whole other book to write. But it was kind of frustrating because really, like, it was such a silly thing. Like, just poor communication that resulted in the characters having a conflict when really there didn't need to be one. So that's why I could not give this book 5 stars. I just really didn't like where the story went in the last 20% or so. But I will definitely be reading the second and final book of Fire Endless. I love that this is a duology. I definitely think I can knock the second book out soon and complete the story. Then I read Suspense and Sensibility, the second Mr. and Mrs. Darcy murder mystery by Carrie Bebris. I gave this 3 stars. This is the second in a Regency historical mystery series where a married Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy solve crimes. And that's just the best premise for a book ever, in my opinion, because Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are my favorite couple from all of literature, and I love a good mystery. Now, what I liked about this book is I still really enjoyed the way this author writes the characters of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. They feel very true to me. The way she writes them matches the way that I interpret their characters and how I would see them interacting. They have this very lovely playfulness between them now that they're married. However, the mystery plotline of this book was a big fail, in my opinion. The premise of this book is that Elizabeth's sister Kitty has come to stay with the Darcys for the London season in hopes of finding her a suitable husband. Kitty develops an attraction to Harry Dashwood, and yes, he is related to the Dashwoods from Sense and Sensibility. There is a bit of a crossover there. And as Kitty and Harry begin their relationship, strange things start to happen that can't really be explained. I think where this was going was extremely obvious and kind of cheesy. One thing I knew about this series going in was that the first two books did include some supernatural elements. There are things that go on in this book that just cannot be logically explained by the way the real world works. So it just kind of takes this ridiculous turn, in my opinion, which is both outrageous and obvious at the same time. It's outrageous because it's not something that can be logically explained, but it was also so obvious that's where the plot was going at the same time. So I really did not like the mystery storyline in this. Also, there's really not a murder in this book. Somebody does die towards the end, but I would not call this a murder mystery because it's really not all that important in terms of the overall plot. It's kind of more like an afterthought. So while I really enjoyed the characters and getting to read more about Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, the mystery was just so bad. It was so bad. Luckily, these supernatural elements are dropped in later installments in the series, so I won't have to deal with those anymore. The other thing that really bothered me about this book is, I will say, this book was written in the early 2000s, and obviously society back then was very different from how it is now. But there is a character in this book who is described as being plump, and the author kind of creates a recurring gag about her eating too much, and it was not great. It just it was kind of like she was mocked for being fat. Like, oh my God, look at the fat girl and how much she eats at every opportunity. Oh my God, like, it was kind of just treating her in a way that I felt like was very disrespectful, like using her being fat to make fun of her. And it was not great. It was not funny. It did not age well at all. Like, don't talk about how much or how little people eat and think it's funny, because it's not funny. It's really not your business. Now, I'm going to be very brief when talking about these next three books because I read them all for a vlog, which I will link in the card. I filmed a vlog in March where I read books that had been recommended for my zodiac sign. I am a Pisces, and so I went online to find articles about Pisces book recommendations, and these were the three books that I picked out. The first book I read for that vlog was Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I gave this 4 stars. This is just a very cute children's classic about an orphan girl who is adopted by a brother and sister to work on their farm. They originally intend to get a boy, but by mistake, they receive this very happy-go-lucky, ginger-haired orphan girl named Anne instead, and they end up deciding to keep her because they develop an affection for her. It's all in all a very cute story. I didn't love it as much as other people do. I know this is an absolute all-time favorite book for a lot of people, and personally I enjoyed it, but I don't see myself continuing the series. I'm glad that I read it though. It's something that I have wanted to read, and I probably would not have picked it up anytime soon if it were not for this vlog. All in all, a cute book. I think this would be a good read for someone who wants to get started with classics because it's very accessible and easy to read. Next in that vlog, I read The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. This is a historical fiction novel set in Gilded Age Atlanta. The main character, Jo, is a young Chinese American woman who works as a housemaid by day, but by night she is secretly writing as Miss Sweetie, a agony aunt, I think is what you call it. She is an advice columnist in a newspaper. This was a really good book too. I gave this 4 stars. I loved Jo as the main character and I was really rooting for her. I think the thing that I didn't like about this book is it had a lot of side characters and subplots. I felt like it was a bit too much and there were some plot threads that probably could have been cut out to create a neater and more tightly paced story. I did still think it was a very enjoyable book though, and I liked it. Not a new all-time favorite, but I would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. And finally, for that vlog, I read The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. I was not sure what to rate this book. I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars. I was kind of disappointed by this one, but I think that's just because I went into it expecting to love it and hoping to give it a 5-star rating. So I think, I was a little disappointed that I didn't love it like I was hoping I would. So this is a classic crime novel starring Nick and Nora Charles. They are a married couple and Nick is a former private detective. They have a delightful, witty banter going on between the two of them. Though the characters only appeared in this one book, they did appear in several films due to the popularity of the first movie. They just kept writing more stories for Nick and Nora to appear in. And the characters of Nick and Nora are considered the first in this mystery archetype of the bantering, sleuthing couple. That's one of my new favorite tropes. So I really thought I was going to love this book, and I did like the 2 main characters and the dynamic they had. I think the problem is I just don't like Hammett's writing style. I think he's a little too bare bones for me, and his tone is just not my personal favorite. This is the lightest of all of his novels. He usually wrote noir fiction, and this is a little bit more of a noir comedy of manners, I guess. But I just think his way of writing wasn't my favorite, and I was a little bit underwhelmed by the book because of that. I definitely think, though, I would check out the film adaptation if I could find it somewhere. I think maybe I would like the film more than the book. Next, I read The Girl on the Velvet Swing, Sex, Murder, and Madness at the Dawn of the 20th Century by Simon Betts. This is a true crime novel about the murder of famous architect Stanford White at the turn of the 20th century. I added this book to my TBR originally because I saw it recommended in a BuzzFeed article on books to read if you loved HBO's The Gilded Age, and I absolutely loved season 1 of The Gilded Age. Stanford White actually makes a cameo appearance in season 1 as the new boss for one of the characters. Basically, Stanford White was shot to death in the middle of a crowded theater by this wealthy man named Harry Thaw. Harry Thaw was obviously arrested for the murder, but he told the police the reason he shot White was because White had sexually assaulted Thaw's wife, a former chorus girl named Evelyn Nesbit. What happened after that was, at the time, a very high-profile murder trial. You have these 2 men, Stanford White and Harry Thaw, and considering the allegations against both of them, it doesn't seem like either of them were very nice men, to say the least. It was definitely a very dramatic story. I personally did not always love the way this book was written. Sometimes the author would say certain things that were so specific that I kind of wondered, did he get this from somewhere, or is he dramatizing the scenario? Is this something that happened, or is he using creative license? Another thing is, I noticed very early on in the book that he has this tendency where when he uses a pronoun, he specifies who he's talking about, and it was a little irritating. So for example, let's just say the sentence was, Jackie was updating her YouTube subscribers and she was sitting in a chair in her bedroom. Just to make it up. He would write that sentence as, Jackie was updating her YouTube subscribers and she, parentheses, Jackie, was sitting in a chair in her bedroom. So he does that all the time, where if he says he or she, he in parentheses, clarifies who he's talking about, even though it's clear from the context of the sentence who he is talking about. And so that just was a very small detail that grated on me a bit. Is that really nitpicky of me to say? I just am saying I remember that about the book. I remember that little writing quirk of his, and it was irritating to me. It was a 3-star book. It was good, not great. And finally, I read The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie. This is a Miss Marple mystery, and it was my Read Christie pick for the month of March. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This book takes place in a village called Limestock, where the local residents have been receiving these mysterious letters from an anonymous source. And these letters are basically accusing people around the town of various, let's say, amorous indiscretions. But then this woman named Mrs. Symington ends up dying, supposedly by suicide. But did she actually commit suicide, or was she murdered? That is the question. I was slightly bored at the beginning of the book, to be honest. I wanted the book to pick up the pace a little bit. However, I thought the ending was very enjoyable, so that boosted my rating up to a 4-star. It was all in all a pretty good book. I filmed another trying to solve Agatha Christie video around this book, so go watch that video to find out if I successfully solved it or not. So everyone, those were all the books that I read in the month of March. What did you read in the month of March? Have you read any of the books that I read this month? If so, what did you think of them? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you're still here but you don't know what to say, how about you comment a blue heart emoji in the comment section. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a stunning rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you in the next video.